Welcome everyone to Throwback Gaming's Let's Play of Our Life Getting As Always Part 17. Last time we did the family episode, which was very interesting, so if you're interested, click in the video in the playlist before this one to check that out. But now it's time to do dinner. So let's jump in, shall we? Sunlight shone through the windows as you sat in your living room. Your home phone pressed to your ear. Cove was on the other end. Isn't it kind of silly we're on the phone with him when he lives across the street? Just saying. It'd been shaping up to be an ordinary day like any other until Cove had called unexpectedly. He sounded unusually nervous greeting you. Huh. Wonder why. You listened silently as he kept talking, his words stilted. So, I was just wondering, do you want to come over to my house for dinner tonight? Sure. I wonder how many times we've been invited over to dinner. Because so far I think it's been 0. The question came out strangely, almost like he had rehearsed it a few times beforehand. Probably. And here's another thing I don't understand. His mom's supposedly living with them this whole summer, except I haven't seen her at all before the moments began. You see her at the beginning of step 2, but then you don't see her again. So that doesn't really make any sense to me, unless I guess in this particular situation she shows up. Your eyes widened a little. You hadn't expected this to be the reason behind the call. Yeah, I'll go, I can't, or you kept listening. I mean, he asked us a question. We don't really need to keep listening, and obviously we need to go support him. It was, Oh. It seemed that Cove still had more to say, and you just interrupted him. Oops. Really? It didn't seem like he did. Cool, well... He stumbled for a bit, trying to gather his thoughts again. My mom and dad, they really want you to be here. If your parents don't have a problem with it, they asked me to ask you. I'm sure my moms don't mind. It took a moment to think. Dinner at home would be quiet and uneventful today. If you really wanted to, you could go to Cove's instead. Cove spoke up again, breaking your thought train. His voice was softer than before. Also, I want you to be there too. Can you? Come over there, I mean? Yeah, I can come. I'll have to ask my mom to get back to you. No, I can't make it. Or why I'm the only one invited. Or did you mean the whole family? No, he just wants us, because we're his date. Thanks, Jamie. I'll let him know when I can. He sounded noticeably relieved by your response. Was you coming over for dinner that serious? He spoke to you a little while longer to explain what time to come over and other details, then hung up. And that was that. For now, anyway. Soon enough, the sun dipped out of the sky and evening came. It was time for you to head to Cove's house. After letting Elizabeth know you were leaving, she didn't look away from the TV, just grunted. You made your small journey across the street. You knocked a couple times on the heavy door to their condo. As you waited for an answer, you found yourself contemplating being a guest while both the Cove's parents were there. It was exciting. You were apprehensive. The idea made you curious. You didn't think it'd be especially interesting. Or you couldn't say you were thrilled. Let's be curious, because like I said, I haven't seen his mom all summer except for that very first time that she showed up. So, I'm interested. You wonder why they decided to invite you out of the blue. Maybe you'd find out later tonight. You didn't get too much time with your thoughts, though. The door opened soon enough. Cove's mom, Kyra, stood in the frame, smiling warmly at you. Hiya, Jamie. Welcome. Please come in. She's in a good mood, which is surprising. She opened the door wider and moved to make room. You stepped inside, allowing her to shut it behind you. Thanks so much for coming over. I know it was kind of last second. I live across the street. It's not last second, you know? Thank you for having me. Of course, just make yourself at home. It's not my home, but I've been given permission to say that. Hey Jamie, welcome to our humble abode. You jerk your head towards the sound of Mr. Holden's voice. He waved at you briefly from the kitchen, with his back turned and a large spoon in hand. Hope you're hungry, because I whipped up a lot of tasty stuff. Food's always good, Mr. Holden. True to his word, you heard something sizzling on the stove. You closed your eyes and inhaled. It smelled spicy and savory. With Mr. Holden busy and Cove nowhere to be seen, it was just you and Kyra. She gave you a wry smile. What are you plotting? He sure is. Well, I've been barred from cooking the entire time I'm staying here. Can you believe that? Well, either he's trying to impress you or you're a horrible cook. Hopefully the former. She nudged you with an elbow. Mr. Holden scoffed good-naturedly and then spoke from over his shoulder. You're on vacation, Kyra. You need to accept that already. She yelled back, amusement oblivious or obvious on her face and tone. People still cook when they're on vacation. Everybody's got to eat. It's not like I'm some celebrity who can go out for every meal or hire a private chef. Well, in this house, you're a VIP. That's because he still loves you, even though you broke up with him for some reason. Kyra smiled and shook her head quietly. Then she turned back and faced you once more. Sorry about that, Jamie. Here I was, trying to strike up a conversation with you, and Cliff just had to butt in. I don't butt in. She eyed him, chuckling in disbelief. He wasn't exactly disproving her point with that. I wonder if they're going to end up getting back together. Or maybe she's just teasing him because, you know, old habits and whatnot. Kyra leaned over to whisper to you. It's okay, he likes to be included, but since Clifford insisted on cooking all by himself, he'll have to wait. The two of us can chat. Seems like she likes to tease him. She's actually in a good mood, which is surprising, considering when she first got here, she didn't like him. She was not happy with him. Her next question continued to be said in a hushed tone just to be safe. So, how you doing? Like, this is an important question that's not, needs to be top secret, you know? I'm doing good. Oh, I'm good. Things are okay. I'm not really sure. You didn't reply to her question. Rude. Guess I'm doing okay. That's what I like to hear. She opened her mouth to say something more, but some lightly pounding footsteps caught your attention. I wonder who this could be. You checked to see Cove emerge from the hall a few moments later. He might have heard all the commotion and left his room to see what was going on. He quickly took stock of the situation. His cheeks tinted pink at the sight of you standing in his living room, and his hand came up to rub his arm almost bashfully. Why, you embarrassed, you know we were coming over. Jamie, hey, thanks for being here. There was nothing unusual about the words in his greeting, but you could tell something was wrong from the way he looked, like he wanted to be anywhere but here. Hey, Cove, you doing okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, I don't think you are. You don't look fine. You look like something's bothering you, but, you know, that's how you feel most of the time, so maybe it's just normal. He didn't sound convincing at all. You narrowed your eyes suspiciously, but didn't call him out on it. Yeah, it's because his mom's right here. She can hear everything. If you could talk to him alone tonight, maybe you'd ask him what's going on then. Maybe his mom's leaving early or something. It was when you glanced away from Cove that you spotted his parents watching the two of you interact. Cove noticed their stares too, meeting them with narrow eyes. They're like trying to be sneaky. Are we having dinner now? Not yet, bud. I'm still cooking. Alright, I'm gonna go back to my room. As he turned to leave, he bent his head to the side to face you. You coming? The question was quiet, but you heard it clearly. You smiled, pleased that he asked, and nodded informative. He's trying to talk to you without there being any people eavesdropping. Although I wouldn't be surprised if his mom stood out beside the door and tried to hear what we were saying. Cove turned fully and made his way down the hall. Have fun, you two. Why does that sound wrong? Moving on. We'll call you when the food's ready to go. They're scheming. You know they're scheming. Just like our moms in the previous episode. With that, you followed after Cove. The two of you made your way down the hall. This was the first time you were invited to see Cove's room. You had visited You had visited Cove's room before, but only rarely, or going over to Cove's room was a standard occurrence for you nowadays. I don't know. I feel like we would have been in his room before this point, because if not, I feel like they would have made a bigger deal about it. But, I guess we'll go with the last one. Cove got to the door first, opening it, and stepping inside. You joined him. Hey, it's cool. He's got some fish on the wall. He's got some seashells, some other things hanged up. He's got an old globe-looking map. He's got a fish tank. That's cool. It's just kind of odd. I guess it used to be maybe like a bunk bed. But they converted it. There's his surfboard. Not bad. He's got a little plant. There's a mat on the floor in front of the door. As you stepped over the threshold in his room, you felt the crunch of sand beneath your feet. The sensation was nothing new to you, of course. Cove constantly came back to his room covered in sand, not bothering to clean himself off at the front door. And it got all over his personal space. Come on, Cove, why do you want sand in your room? Shaking my head. That's just how he was, a little bit of a mess. I mean, his room don't look that messy, aside for the floor mat. You hadn't heard Mr. Holden ever scold him for it, not like your moms would have you done. That's because Mr. Holden's trying to be chill. You can sit wherever you want. Cove himself took a seat at the edge of his large bed, looking like the picture of comfort, and left you to decide. You didn't sit anywhere, you sat down on the chair, you sat next to Cove on his bed. Well, there's only one correct answer, everyone. Obviously, we're sitting on the bed next to him. As soon as you sat next to him, Cove grew tense. His back went stiff and he ducked his head away. He's so bashful. It's kind of funny. He tried to hide a trembling smile. Oh my God. He said under his breath as if he didn't want you to hear. You obviously didn't. Easily, you were right beside him. You were nervous about that. You smiled comfortably at him. You chuckled over it. You felt very charmed by his reaction. Let's try to comfort him. He raised his eyebrows. You both kept noticing the other's every move. You only shrugged back. It's nothing. Don't worry about it. You're like an open book. You know that. You're such a sweet guy, Cove. You're adorable. What? Clearly, he hadn't expected the compliment. Somehow, his flush grew even worse. Spreading all the way down his neck, he fumbled for words. I'm not... That's... He gripped the blanket underneath him and searched for something more to say. Did you see my fish? I got some in a tank right there. Don't you change the subject. But yeah, I saw your fish. Cove threw both of his hands in front of him to direct your eyes towards his pets. He was trying pretty poorly to change the topic. That much was clear. You decided to show him mercy and allow it. You started to watch the bright fish swim. There was a bunch of them, floating to and fro in the open space. They stood out starkly against the green aquarium plants. Excuse me. How long have you had those fish? My dad brought them for me not very long after I moved here. I guess it's been years now. Okay, if we've never seen these fish before, and he's had them for years, it makes us feel like we probably either haven't been in his room very much, even though I said we did, or we just never paid attention to this fish tank till now. Which is kind of rude. Wow, that's a long time. You peered carefully into the tank. The fish looked like it was doing well. He must take good care of them. Good job, Cove. Most of them were small, but there was one especially big one. What are their names? I don't name them. Well, not really. I mean, you have a name for them. I bet one of them's named Jamie. You lifted an eyebrow at that. He continued the explanation sheepishly. Mostly, I just called them things based on what they look like. Squirt for the little small one, tangerine for the really orange one, that sort of thing. That's kind of cute, though. I've had a lot of fish, and I'm not good at coming up with names. You found that funny, you found that surprising, or you found that relatable. Who knew that there was a weakness of his? It was an entertaining revelation. I know, right? Oh, a couple of them have other types of names. He pointed to a small orangish red fish. It was minding its own business away from the others. Is that yours, Cove? My dad named her Dreamcatcher, and that other one's Mark. Mom came up with that one. I like Dreamcatcher. Cove smiled to himself, his eyes reflecting the glow over the tank. You let other people name your fish? Yeah, it's nice. Then he turned to you, tilting his head side to the side. There was a considering look on his face. Do you want to name one? Sure. Yeah, I do. Can I? Or no thanks? His smile grew a little at your interest. Sure. There's a few who don't have names right now, the newer ones. You can pick the one you want to name. He pointed to each of the recent acquisitions out to you. The first was a small fish in the tank. It was completely orange and zipped all over the place, running laps around the others. The second one was slightly bigger and red. Its tail was dotted with black spots, which almost resembled freckles. The last fish, which was the biggest, it had multicolored scales rippled under the bright light of the tank as it slowly made its way across the vast expanse. You went with... The small, fast one, the medium one that has like freckles, or the big, slow fish? Let's go with the big one. Cove only nodded at your answer, waiting for you to decide on a suitable name. You wanted the fish you chose and you watched the fish you chose closely. As you did, a name eventually came to you. Frank, Sunbeam, Gil, Jamie, or Cove. Or type in your own answer. We're gonna name him Cove. Cove laughed unreservedly at your choice. It was affectionate rather than insulting. What? You can't name it after me. Why not? Why not? Exactly. Cause I'm not gonna call my fish that. Nah. But you still said I could pick it out. Cove shook his head with a bent smile. I'll call them Junior then. You can still call them Cove. It seemed like a good enough compromise, so you agreed. Cove nodded, satisfied. Alright, it's Cove. That didn't take much effort. With that, his attention moved from you to the tank. He peered fondly at it and its inhabitants. You smiled proudly at Cove as it swam through its tendrils of plants, disappearing and then reappearing soon after. You noticed then that Cove was sitting closer to you than he was before. He must have scooted over at some point during the conversation. Well, it seemed like he got a little less nervous now. This close, your shoulders were almost brushing against each other. Your heartbeat picked up a little at the realization. You know, I'm not allowed to have pets in my house, not even fish. Why? Are we all just really bad at taking care of animals, or what? The corners of Cove's lips turned down at that. It doesn't sound fair. It's not like fish would make any mess at your house or anything. You just have to take care of the tank and feed them and they'll be okay. Right? My moms can be strict over the weirdest things sometimes. I don't mind it too much, or I get it. It is kind of weird they're not allowed to have fish. I mean, I can see dogs or cats, which, you know, are kind of more high maintenance, but fish aren't that hard as long as you take care of them, you know? But I don't mind it. I'm not a big pet person. Not like I hate pets, but I just don't like having to be responsible for something and then, like, forgetting to feed it or having to figure out who's going to take care of it if I go out of town or something, you know? But I totally get it. Pets, you know, are important to a lot of people. And I just don't want the extra responsibility. You have to do so much for a pet. It's a lot of work and responsibility, which I was just saying, you know. My moms take it super seriously, and that's why they don't want to get one. That's true. Your current conversation brought into mind a memory from years ago. You launched into it without warning, earning a brief, confused look from Cove. One time, Elizabeth, came back from playing at the beach and just shut herself in her room. She only came down for food, and then she ran back upstairs straight after. It was kind of weird. My mom didn't think much about it at first. But then one night, Mom went to her room to say goodnight and started screaming. What, did she have a crab or something? Mom and I ran over to see what happened. Lizzie had this huge lizard in her arms. That seems so appropriate for Lizzie. Cove's eyes rose at that, and he leaned forward in interest. A lizard? Where'd that come from? The beach. Elizabeth said she saw it half buried in the sand and didn't know what it was. Then she pulled it out and got the answer. So she brought it home. She hid the lizard in her room for most of the day because she wanted to keep it. Mom and Ma were not happy. They were worried about putting it out during the night, but she was going to have to let it go in the morning. Lizzie was really upset. She did bring it back to the beach eventually, but she wouldn't talk to anyone for days. When she did get over it, it was almost like it never happened. That's interesting. You laugh thinking back to that time. Elizabeth always had been stubborn, but when she was younger, she forgot grudges quickly. Now it wasn't so easy. Cove had been quiet for most of the story, apart from the reveal of the lizard. He had a thoughtful look on his face. I can't even imagine what it'd be like to have a sibling. You gave serious thought to his statement before you told him. It's fun, there's ups and downs, you're lucky to be an only child, it's nice idea in general, but my sister is Elizabeth. I don't know how to explain what it's like. Well, me personally, I have a stepsister, a half-brother, and a younger brother, so I have lots of options for siblings, and it's got ups and downs, you know, good and bad. They're either your best friend or your worst enemy, depending on the situation and stuff, but more or less, usually it's a good thing. It's fun to have her there when she wants to be there, but now Elizabeth very feels like hanging out with me. And that's the thing, when you get older, a lot of times, unless you're all about the same age, sometimes it's hard to stay in touch. And, you know, do stuff like when you were little. Cove pursed his lips at the words, considering them quietly for a while. That's interesting. I think your family is cool. He didn't have much to say, though while on the topic of family, you consider your relationship with your moms too. They were absolutely the best. You got along well with your moms. You thought your moms were okay, or you found your moms to be difficult to deal with. I think we'll go with this one. That seemed pretty cool. You had disagreements with them, but at the end of the day, you loved them and they loved you. And that's what really mattered. Exactly. That's how family's supposed to be, you know? You don't always get along, but you love them, they love you, and more or less you should be able to get along and have good times, you know? Well, say what you wanted about him, but at least your mom's never tried to pay someone to be your friend. Oh yeah, we're gonna have this conversation again. Thought prompted you to look over at Cove. He probably still didn't know what happened. Don't tell him. That's just going to make things worse. You doubted Mr. Hall had mentioned it, and you never did. You wondered if you should tell him. It was long ago, but you were keeping a secret from Cove. You didn't tell him it was a bad time. You didn't tell him you weren't sure how he'd react. You didn't tell him secrets were meant to be kept. You didn't tell him you didn't want to have that talk with Cove, or you decided to tell him. It's like I want to tell him, but at the same time, it's like, what are we gonna get out of it, you know? I just feel like if we do that, it's just gonna make him mad at his dad, and we're supposed to be having dinner, and I just feel like it's not the right time. You could bring it up some other day when the moment was right. I just feel like now it's not the right time for that. Maybe when he's older, you know, in the last step, when he's not living with his parents or whatever. But I don't feel like this is the right time. We're having dinner with his family. We don't want to cause trouble when it's supposed to be like a good thing. Time passed, but you didn't really notice. The two of you were happy, busy making plans for the rest of the summer and chatting about your respective dates. Eventually, you heard a muffled holler from a different part of the house. You and Cove raised your heads in unison. It's time for dinner. Cove watched the firmly shut door he had locked behind for most of the night, but he didn't make a move to get up from the bed. You couldn't see his face, so you didn't know what expression he was wearing. I'm glad you came. Cove peeked back from the side. It's been awkward. I get that. It's been hard on you, huh? Well, yeah, I mean, your mom's living here with your dad, and they're not together, and it's probably rough seeing your parents live in the same house even if they're not married anymore. You felt sympathetic towards him. You didn't know what he was going through, but you cared about him. Cove said nothing else and remained seated where he was. Now would be a good time as I need to ask him why his parents suddenly wanted you to come over. Is there a reason they wanted me to come over tonight, or you kept quiet? Yeah, let's find out now. It hadn't been awkward for just me. Sometimes it gets like this when no one else is around, but now that you're here... You hadn't considered that, but it sort of made sense in a way. There was another shout from outside, too muffled to actually know the words, but you can imagine what they were. Let's go. Cove finally got up, lumbering away with his shoulders sagged. You followed after him. Together, the two you made your way to the living room. As expected, Cove's parents were politely waiting for you at the kitchen table. Besides the windows overlooking the back of the house, the food had been prepared and set. Mr. Holden beamed at you and beamed as you and Cove took your places. I hope everyone's hungry. I cooked up a feast. Must have been. I mean, we were in his room talking for hours. I know I am. Yeah. Cove's mumbled response wasn't nearly as beat as theirs. His parents didn't notice, so they pretended not to. Mr. Holden instead looked at you, grinning. Let's all take a moment to thank our special guest for being with us here tonight. I'm so glad you were able to make it, Jamie, and on such a short notice, too. I live across the street. We've been talking to each other for years. It's not like, I had to come across country or anything. You thank Cove's parents for inviting you. You didn't say anything or you felt awkward about the situation. Let's thank them. Let's be polite. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Well, that's it. Everyone, please dig in. You can help yourselves to the food. Upon his encouragement, you looked over the meal spread out in front of you. There was a large garden salad in the center, surrounded by a variety of Mexican dishes. There was a lot of sides and optional sauces to add. You were very happy about these options. You could work with this. You weren't exactly a fan of this, just kind of surprised you. We can work with it. You didn't mind Mexican food. Mom loved it. So you ate it as a family often. In a way, it made your first dinner at the Holden house feel a bit more normal. Alright, so this is the first time we had dinner over here. Interesting. Utensils and plates scraped and clinked together as the group began filling their plates. Cliff, would you pass the salsa verde? Of course. Thank you. Let me just say, you really outdid yourself tonight. I'm so jealous. Jealous of what? You're cooking something to sneeze at, Kira. Cove's parents made small talk, filling the silence with what seemed to be barely any effort. Well, they were married, and they have, old habits. They can talk to each other and be decent sometimes. You chimed in as well. Did it take you long to cook all this, Mr. Holden? Oh, not at all. Sure, this is more than I usually make for me and Cove, but I enjoyed every second of it. He's trying to impress Kira. Might have gone faster if you had some help, though. Cove's mom's grumbled, but it was lighthearted. Mr. Holden chuckled and shook his head. Not this again. I make the rules here, and I say guests don't cook. Even when they're staying for literal weeks. Even then. Brief silence intercepted... I don't know. The small talk. You piled some food on your plate, waiting for your turn if someone was serving themselves a dish that you had your eye on. Once the food had been divided and things settled down, Cove's parents started talking again. Now then. Excuse me. You sat up in your seat when you noticed they were both looking at you. How has everything been over at your house? Are your moms well? Been keeping busy this summer? Or maybe you're just trying to take it easy during the break. It's been kind of interesting. Me and Elizabeth talked about our biological parents. Found out some interesting stuff about that. Me and Cove talked about our sexuality and who we're interested in. And, we also went surfing. So, you know, pretty good stuff so far. Kind of light and heavy. You felt overwhelmed by the sudden rush of questions. You were more than happy to answer. You were surprised but didn't mind the interest. You felt uncomfortable with the attention. Sure, let's answer his questions. Why not? Cove's parents seemed honestly interested to hear from you. You were kind of flattered by the attention. You answered how things were at your house. You told them how your moms were doing, or you mentioned things you had done this summer. We'll start with the first one. It's been good, it's been good, it's what you said but didn't mean it, it's alright, it's not been great, I'd rather not talk about it. We'll just say it's been alright. Though not too bad. Let's tell them how our mom's been doing. Our moms are great, mom's fine, they're the same as always, or you should ask my parents yourself. Rude. They're doing good for the most part. Work's a little stressful, but they said it's normal grown-up stuff and nothing to worry about. I know too well what that's like, unfortunately. Adult problems, am I right? You mentioned things you've done this summer. Not sure where to start, there's been so much to happen. You should know what I've been up to since so much has included your family, or I haven't really done much. We'll just say this one. Mr. Holden's brows raised when you answered with that. You sure are keeping yourself busy. I could learn a thing or two from you. And that's all you had. Kyra nodded along. You could tell she was actually listening to your words you were saying. She was trying to include you, not humor you. Did you know, Cliff, Jamie is really into socializing? Mr. Holden's face lit up, and he stopped eating so he could lean forward, his arms braced against the table. Why do I feel like he's being melodramatic for no reason? Oh, that's right. Very cool. It's just a hobby. I'm pretty serious about it, or it's not a big thing. Socializing? Oh, don't play your interests like that. Kyra's right. You enjoy it, then it's definitely a big thing. They're trying to be nice to me because they know Cove likes me, and they know that you like Cove, so they're trying to get on our good side. Cove's parents were definitely the encouraging type, but you could already tell that much about them. That's good, though. It's good to encourage your kids, as long as it's for the right things, you know? There was a lull in conversation as everyone focused their attention on their respective plates. You noted, not for the first time, that Cove's parents were the ones guiding the conversation. You wondered if you should break the silence this time. You brought up your own topic of conversation, or you let them keep up. Let's ask some questions to them. I also like other things. Would you like to tell us more? Yeah, absolutely. They looked generally eager for you to keep talking, so you did. The rest of dinner continued just like that, with light conversation as you ate your meals. Eventually, all the dishes on the table were clean and pretty much gone. Kyra set down her fork and rested her arms at her sides, letting a loose, satisfied sigh. Her plate was completely empty. That was delish. Thanks for your culinary creations, Cliff. Mr. Holden was like a flower soaking up the rays of the sun. He beamed, flattered by the praise. You ate way too much. You ate until you were satisfied. You tried not to eat too much, even though it was good. I try to eat until I'm full. It had taken you some time to finish it all, which sounds like me. I'm a very slow eater, but eventually you cleared your plate. Cove successfully kept his presence to a minimum for the full meal. Yeah, he did not want to be here. Even though we were here, he didn't make much conversation. He didn't talk at all. He was slumped over, even now, toying with the silverware. His parents practically only talked to you. Most attempts to entice him to join the conversation failed. Then again, Cove didn't tend to talk a lot unless he happened to be in the mood for it. Yeah, he's very moody. Which I am too, so I can't say anything. So you weren't surprised things ended this way. You didn't get much time to contemplate Cove's situation because your attention was taken by Mr. Holden pointedly clearing his voice. Not to sound like a broken record, but thanks for coming, Jamie. I'm glad we finally got the chance to have you over for a real dinner. What? Did I hear that right? This is the first time Jamie ever had dinner here? Why in the world haven't you invited him over sooner? I know, it is kind of weird since me and Cove are, like, really close. Cove was always the one to go over to Jamie's house until now. Well, I guess that's true. I mean, how was I supposed to reject the generous offers of the last family to host my kid? Ira shook her head, but the amused smile she was sporting told you that she wasn't actually mad. Well, I'm glad these two are getting along, at least for the moment. This guy, honestly. Oh, you're actually gonna say something? What? The three of you looked at Cove in unison, his small sound being more than enough to get the focus on him after the silence. By now, he'd stopped fiddling with his fork. Would it be alright for Jamie to stay over, like, for the night? Oh, this is serious. I'm intrigued. He shot you a sly glance, smiling a little. That changed the tone really quickly, didn't it? I feel like they want to say yes, but they also... Well, I feel like they want to say no, actually. Because, you know, teenagers and whatnot. But at the same time, they also seem more open to things. But I'm curious to see what's going to be said. If you're cool with that... Mr. Holden's shoulders stiffened. Oh, love it. He sat up straighter, eyes darting back and forth between you and Cove. His mouth opened when not a peep came out. I'm surprised Cove, who hasn't said anything all... Maybe that's what he was focused on. He wanted to say this. He's shocked. He's like, did my son just say this? That's hilarious. You never seen Cove's dad say no to him before, but this was different than the usual request. It wasn't so simple, and Mr. Holden was like, exactly. I mean, this is kind of one of those situations, you know, we're both teenagers. He knows, everyone knows that we like each other, so it's kind of one of those deals, you know. Then Cove's mom reached out and took a hold of his shirt collar. She pulled him closer. I'm guessing she's pulling, yeah, this says Cove, I think. She glanced at you before leaning in and bringing a hand up to the front of their faces. The two, oh, she's talking to Cliff. They're discussing if their kid can do this or not. Interesting. Cove's eyes opened wider. He leaned forward as if that would help him overhear his parents' conversation. Well, I'm kind of glad she's here because, I mean, you know, this is both his parents. They should negotiate this and decide what they think is best for their kid in this situation. Mr. Holden kept gesturing with his hands while Kyra made sure he didn't get too far away with his moments. She's not trying to give away what he's trying to say. Every now and then, both of them would watch you and Cove out of the corner of their eyes. It didn't seem like they were fighting to you. It looked like there was some kind of tiny sports team having a private huddle. After a bit, they broke the powwow. They moved back to sit properly in their chairs. You snuck a look at Cove. He stared at them expectantly. You were eager to hear their verdict, too. I know, this is interesting. We, Kyra and I, think that should be fine, but we have to sleep in separate rooms. That's probably what it's going to be. He lifted a finger dramatically, his brows raising as he met Cove's gaze and then your own. We'll have to talk to Jamie's parents to make sure they'd be comfortable with it. Okay, that's good. That's good. Because... this is actually, I think this is probably the best idea because they should make this decision without talking to our parents too first and seeing what they think, you know? But I mean, we haven't really gotten in much trouble except for that one time that Cove ran away and we followed him. But otherwise, I mean, we really haven't done nothing bad, you know? If they are, we can arrange for a sleepover to happen on a different night when everyone is more prepared. Jamie's folks don't like the idea there's nothing we can do. Okay, I think this is a good idea, and one of the DLC episodes is a sleepover, I believe. So, this is interesting. I look forward to this. He finished the mini speech with a wide shrug. You can see his full arms. He also checked out Kyra from the corner of his eye and gave her a crooked smile. She nodded approvingly and grinned back. You thought you saw her give him a thumbs up, but her hand was also partially blocked by the table. They looked so pleased with themselves over the answer, but they just passed the actual decision on whether it was alright or not to have someone else, namely your parents. They also kind of passed the decision on into our parents, and if they are not okay with it, then it's over with. If this was a sports game, they would have putted the ball away. Cove hung his head, deflated. He had been hoping he could stay over today, not some hypothetical time in the future. You gave him some words of encouragement. You patted him on the back. Psh, I'll sneak the phone into my room tonight. Hey, you could always sneak into my room again. No, we don't need to be talking about this when they're right there. Let's give him some words of encouragement. Cheer up, Cove. I'm still right here, aren't I? Things will work out somehow. Though he still appeared upset, the corner of his lips lifted a little in appreciation of your comfort. With that, dinner finally came to an end. Mr. Holden stood up from the table and began collecting empty plates. Cove was asked to help out, which he did with little fuss. Kyra tried to lend a hand as well, however Mr. Holden didn't let her. It seemed that she was barred from cleaning as well as cooking. You weren't allowed to chip in either, since you were here as a declared guest of honor. Although the meal was over, the night wasn't. It looked like you weren't going home to shed after all. You were asked to wait on the couch. They're probably about to talk to your moms on the phone. While Cove and his dad were cleaning up, Kyra disappeared down the hall after shooting you a wink. What is she scheming? It was a bit strange sitting by yourself while everyone else had something to do. Luckily, you weren't alone for too long. After a couple minutes, Cove's mom returned with a deck of cards in hand. She strolled into the room confidently while shuffling. I love cards. So, who's up for a few rounds? Cove and his dad looked over their shoulder at the question. They were mutually intrigued by the cards in her hands. She beamed at their expressions and stepped further into the living room. Ignoring the couches, she sat cross-legged on the floor by the coffee table. She turned to you and gestured at the space beside her, smiling invitingly. You accepted and followed her lead. The living room carpet was soft, though the hardwood floor underneath could definitely still be felt. Excuse me. Kyra did an overhand shuffle while she waited for the others to finish their task. A smile had yet to leave her lips. This is going to be good. I wonder if we're going to play Rummy. You were excited, you were nervous, you were bored, you were kind of annoyed, and you enjoyed her enthusiasm. Let's be excited. I like playing games. Besides, they're all in a good mood. So, it's good. You enjoyed card games, and it would be fun to play with Cove and his parents. Yeah, family game night. I love it. It didn't take much longer for Cove and his dad to wrap things up to call it good. Cove's dad appeared first, following close behind by Cove. Mr. Holden rubbed his hands together in anticipation. Alright, I'm in. As he took a seat across from you on the floor, you noticed that Cove hadn't joined him. He went straight down the hall instead, even without a word. You stared on confused as if he disappeared through his bedroom door. Cove's parents didn't look concerned at the stunt. Kara nonchalantly split the deck of cards into two and riffled the halves together while offering an explanation of sorts. Cove doesn't keep his wallet with him when he's home. He puts it away. Oh, we're playing for money. Okay. Cool. What? Cove quickly returned to the living room, a black wallet in his hand. He took a place at the foot of the table with the rest of you. I guess we're playing poker. You blinked as Cove unzipped his wallet. You all use real money on card games of family? This sounds like a bad idea. While you sat there, your hands idle in your lap, the three shot looks at one another and sized each other up. That's right, $5 per round per person. Winner takes all. Go big or go home. Isn't this your home though? So how do you go home? Oh, are you planning to kick Jamie to the curb, or do you intend on donating to the guest of honor's pot, Mr. High Roller? Mr. Holden narrowed his eyes and leaned back against the side of the couch, completely at ease. If Jamie wants to play, I'll find his way in. Don't you worry about that. He rested an arm across the table, across the top of his knee when he propped up. Cove's dad was acting slick in a way you'd never seen him before. He's trying to impress Kyra. You appreciate his offer. You joked that he shouldn't be so confident. You felt awkward about the situation. He was surely and this was pretty appealing. Or you ignored it. We'll just appreciate the offer. Thanks, Mr. Holden. His tone and stance instantly became more familiarly friendly when he started directing his words to you. No problem, you can count on me. Jamie is my friend. If he's playing, I can give him money for the round. Mr. Holden wasn't intimidated by Cove's scout. He only grinned, chuckling. Alright, bud, I can see to your might of personality. Cove looks so excited. Cove still looked a little sour, but he didn't protest more after getting his way. Well, you got your ticket. Interested to throw in? You glanced around. This seemed like serious business. In response to your consternation, I don't know what that word is. Never seen it before in my life. Kyra softened her competitive smile. Don't worry too much. We'll probably just do some rounds of goldfish tonight. No biggie. What do you think? You joined in or you watch? I'm playing. I play to win. I'd love to play. Mr. Holden gave you a big thumbs up while Cove nodded firmly back. You were really good at goldfish. You were decent at goldfish. You left it all to luck, or you're always bad. How do you... I don't really know how you, like, play Go Fish competitively, because, like, it's kind of luck. Card games are mostly about chance, after all. I mean, they usually are. I mean, you know, depends on what you draw and whatnot. Fantastic. We'll play for however long everyone wants to keep going, or until people start running low of cash, but we still have to refuse to quit when we're behind. Speaking for yourself, I see. With a laugh, Kyra nudged you with an elbow, then motioned towards the other two with her chin. Don't be fooled by their soft faces. These boys are sharks. In reaction to her word, Mr. Holden's smirk and Cove's eyebrows became more angled. Kyra's phrase made you think back when you were young, specifically of Mr. Holden's favorite shark pants that he used to wear all the time. Perhaps they had been a fit for him in ways you didn't know of. You could feel tension in the air. Cove and his parents glued to one another, and then all placed the $5 bills in an empty space in front of them. Cove dropped an extra one for you, giving you the tiniest smile after it did. Aw, thank you. Once this was done, Kyra began dealing out cards to everybody. It was time to begin. The first round came and went quickly, with the group getting into the groove of things. You lost, which meant you didn't have any money to add to the pot for another game. Hey, I'll vouch you for the next round, Jamie. How generous, even though you lost your own bet already. Kyra stuck her finger in Mr. Holden's chest. So did you, hotshot. Oh, Cove won the first round. Good for him. Cove had been the one to claim the prize this time. He was quietly pleased with himself while his parents jokingly ragged on each other. Kyra wasn't lying. The boys were sharks.
It's okay.
I'll pay for it. Pass out another round. That's adorable. Watch Cove end up winning. That'd be hilarious. Fine. They answered in unison and got their heads back at the game. That's kind of cute, though. They're all getting along tonight. So that's nice. As the night went on, so did the games. Mr. Holden would jokingly shake his fist whenever someone other than him got a pair. Kyra acted as the news anchor, reporting on every move that everyone makes, speaking into her curled fist. That's adorable. They're all having a good time. I like it. Cove was still few of words, but now it was because he was focused on the game instead of being overcome with awkwardness. Most of the time, he even spotted a smile on his lips. Well, that's good. He's enjoying himself. You didn't win many of the games, but the others always chipped in for you. In fact, it was always a bit of a fight over who got to be your backer. That's adorable. It feels good to be loved, doesn't it? It became clearer that where the money went in the moment didn't really matter. They ended up giving it back to one another in other ways, and not just through more rounds of cards. You sat back looking over the scene. A tiny smile grew on your face. Cove's family was pretty cool, you thought. You were glad you got this chance to come over and spend time with him, with the three of them. And that's it for dinner. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, leave a like. Subscribe to the channel to know when videos come out, and I'll see you next time. Or Bridgie Road Trip. But one last note, I just realized there is nothing about here about sleepover. That was in the other one, so my bad. Maybe the sleepover will happen in moment 3, but we'll have to see. But like I said earlier, peace out, everybody.